chosen one. Why did that almost happen again? You felt it too, like something pulling you away at the exact moment you were about to see it. There's a reason you weren't supposed to miss it this time, and it's not random. No, don't scroll past this. Something already shifted when you stopped here. This is where most people disconnect, but you didn't. You remember that feeling, don't you? That moment where everything almost slipped through your hands again. Like life was repeating the same pattern, same confusion, same near miss. Why does that keep happening to you? You tried to ignore it before. You told yourself it was coincidence, bad timing, just another failed moment. But deep down it never felt normal, because it wasn't. There was always something slightly off about your path. Not wrong, just delayed. Like you were moving, but never at the same speed as everyone else. And it hurt. Not loudly, but quietly. That kind of pain where you don't even explain it anymore, because no one really gets it. You kept showing up, even when things didn't work, even when people walked away, even when you started questioning yourself. Why you? Why always like this? And right when you were about to give up again, something stopped you. Think about that. That exact moment. You almost missed this again. Almost repeated the same exit, the same shutdown, the same silent retreat. But you didn't. Something interrupted it. You felt it, didn't you? That hesitation, that pause, that strange feeling like, wait, not this time. That wasn't you. That's the part you weren't seeing before. You thought those delays meant you were stuck. You thought those closed doors meant rejection. You thought being misunderstood meant you were doing something wrong. But what if that wasn't failure at all? What if it was control, but not yours? Because every time you were about to walk into something that wasn't meant for you, it didn't work. Every time you tried to force something, it slipped. Every time you almost settled, something broke the pattern, and it frustrated you. But look closer. Why were you always stopped right before the wrong thing locked in? Why were you always pulled away just before you lost yourself completely? This is where it gets real. You weren't being blocked, you were being held back on purpose. That delay you hated, it was covering something. That confusion, it was buying you time. That isolation, it was keeping your focus untouched. You thought you were falling behind. But behind what? A path that was never yours? You were being positioned slowly, quietly, in a way you couldn't see yet. And yeah, it didn't feel good, because growth like this doesn't feel like progress. It feels like loss, like silence, like nothing is happening. But something was happening. Every missed moment, every almost, every why did this slip again? It was alignment. And this time, you didn't miss it. That's the difference. This time, something stopped you before you walked away again, before you shut it down again, before you told yourself, it's nothing. Why now? Because you reached the edge, that place where you either disconnect completely or finally see, and you stayed just long enough. That's all it took. Now things start making sense, but slowly, not all at once. You'll start noticing patterns you ignored before. You'll start remembering moments that felt small but weren't. You'll start realizing you were never off track, just guided in a way you couldn't control. And yeah, you almost missed it again, but you didn't. And that changes everything. Something in you knew this moment wasn't just another coincidence. Comment, I stayed, if you felt that pause and recognized it. If this spoke to you, stay connected with Born into Light and keep walking this path with me, because now you can't unfeel it, that quiet pull. It's stronger than before. Not loud, but it's there, sitting under everything. You tried to brush it off, didn't you? Told yourself it's just another moment, nothing special. But it stayed. Why didn't it leave this time? Something inside you is paying attention now. Not your thoughts, deeper than that. Like a part of you finally stopped running. And that's new, because before you would have distracted yourself. Scrolled, walked away, shut it down before it got uncomfortable. But you didn't do that. Why? There's something you're starting to notice, something that doesn't fully make sense yet, but it feels familiar, like you've been here before, not in the same situation, but in the same feeling, that edge, right before something shifts. But here's the part you didn't expect. It was never about the moment you almost missed. It was about the moment right after, that pause, that hesitation, that tiny space where you didn't react the way you always do. That's where everything changed. And it's so small, most people would ignore it. But you didn't. So now the question becomes, why were you always reacting the same way before? Why did you keep stepping away right before things got clear? It wasn't weakness, it was timing. Yeah, that doesn't sit right at first, because it feels like you lost so much time. Like you were late, like others moved ahead, like you kept falling behind. But look at it differently, just for a second. What if you weren't late? What if you were being held until you could actually see? Because seeing too early would have ruined it. You would have misunderstood it, forced it, turned it into something it was never meant to be. And that would have cost you more than delay ever did. So things stayed hidden, not forever, just until now. And now you're here, in this exact moment, not fully understanding, but not blind anymore either. That in between. Do you feel how uncomfortable that is? That space where you can't go back to who you were, but you're not fully who you're becoming yet. That tension, it's not a mistake, it's pressure. Something is forming under it, and you're starting to sense it, even if you can't explain it. This is where most people panic. They try to escape the feeling, label it, rush it. But you're not doing that. Even now, you're still here. Why are you still here? Why are you still here? Something is holding your attention, and it's not random. There's a reason this moment feels different from all the others. Because this time, you didn't just notice the pattern, you interrupted it. And that creates a gap, a space where something new can actually enter. But here's the strange part. Nothing external has changed yet. Same environment, same people, same circumstances. So why does it feel like everything is shifting? That's the part that's hard to explain, because the change didn't happen around you. It happened in the one place you never looked before. And now that you've touched it, even slightly, you can't go back to not knowing it's there. And that's the part that unsettles you. Not fear, not exactly, just this quiet awareness that something opened. You felt it for a second, then it slipped again. But not completely. It left a trace. That's why you're still thinking about it now. That's why it won't fully leave you alone. What was that? It didn't come from outside. No sign, no voice, nothing obvious. Still, it felt directed at you. And that's where it gets uncomfortable. Because if it was meant for you, then it means all those other moments weren't random either. Every sudden stop, every time things broke right before they worked. You thought those were endings, but what if they were interruptions? Not to stop you, to stop something else from reaching you too soon. Hold on, why would something need to be delayed that precisely? That's not chaos. That's timing, but controlled. And you felt that control just now. Not forced, not loud, just exact. Like something stepped in without asking and shifted your direction slightly. Enough to keep you here. Enough to make you notice. But not enough to explain itself. Why stay hidden? Because if you fully saw it too early, you would have tried to take over. You would have rushed it, trying to define it. Turned it into something familiar, and that would have broken it. So it stayed just outside your understanding, close enough to feel, far enough to avoid interference. That's a strange balance, isn't it? And you've been inside it longer than you realize. Think back, not clearly, just the feeling. How many times did something almost happen, then didn't? Right at the edge, then gone. That wasn't loss, that was removal. And yeah, that hits different. Because removal means intention. It means something saw where that path was leading and cut it off, not because you couldn't handle it, but because it would have taken you somewhere you weren't meant to stay. That's why it felt confusing instead of clear, because clarity would have made you chase it. Confusion made you pause. And that pause, that's where you are now again. But this time, it's deeper. You're not just pausing, you're aware that you're pausing. That's new. Why does that matter? Because awareness changes the role you play in all of this. Before, you were reacting. Now, you're observing. And there's something inside that observation. Something quiet, but steady, like it's been waiting for you to finally notice it. Not guide you loudly, just stay present until you were ready. Ready for what? Not the full answer, just the next layer. Because if everything opened at once, you'd reject it. It would feel too big, too much, too unreal. So it comes like this, piece by piece, almost hidden inside ordinary moments. Like this one, and you almost missed it again. But something didn't let you. That's the detail that matters. Not the message, not the words, the interruption. That exact second where you could have moved on but didn't. That's where it entered. And now, it's not leaving. Even if you try to ignore it after this, it's already there, quiet, waiting. And here's the part that shifts everything again. It's not trying to convince you, it's watching if you recognize it. Not with pressure, not with urgency the way you're used to, but with this stillness that doesn't chase you. And that's what feels different, because everything else in your life demanded a reaction. Deadlines, people, expectations. This doesn't. It just stays. Why would something that matters this much stay that quiet? That's the part that almost slips past you, because you've been trained to respond to noise, to movement, to obvious signals. But this doesn't move like that. It waits, and somehow it knew you'd slow down right here, not before, not later, here. That's not luck, that's precision. And yeah, that word might not sit right yet, because precision means this wasn't just about moments. It was about you in those moments. The exact version of you, not the one from before, not the one you're trying to become. This one, the one that almost walked away again, but didn't. Why didn't you? You could have. Nothing was forcing you to stay. No one stopped you physically. So what actually held you here? It wasn't strength. It wasn't discipline. It was recognition before full understanding. That's rare. Most people need clarity first. You didn't. You felt something and paused. That pause keeps coming back, doesn't it? Like it's asking something from you, but not directly. Not a decision, not an action. Just awareness. But here's where it shifts again. That pause isn't empty. It only feels empty because you're not used to what's inside it. There's movement there, just not the kind you can see. Something aligning, quietly. And you're in the middle of it, not observing anymore. Inside it. That's why it feels slightly uncomfortable now. Heavier, but not in a bad way. More like something settling into place. You feel that subtle weight, like something just locked in. This is where people misread it. They think this feeling means confusion or uncertainty or even fear. But it's none of that. It's adjustment. Your awareness is catching up to something that was already happening. And that gap between what's happening and what you understand, that's where the tension comes from. But don't rush to close it, because the moment you try to explain it too fast, you lose it. Strange, right? Something important, but it disappears the second you try to control it. That's not weakness, that's design. This isn't something you grab. It's something you notice and allow. And yeah, that goes against everything you've been taught. To act, to decide, to move quickly. But this moves differently, slower but exact. And it only reveals itself to the version of you that can stay without forcing, which is exactly what you're doing right now. Even if you don't realize it fully, you're still here, still listening, still, not leaving. Why? Because something inside you already knows this isn't just a moment, it's a turning point, but not the kind you announce, the quiet kind. The kind where nothing outside changes immediately, but everything inside shifts just enough that nothing will ever feel the same again. And here's the part that almost no one notices. You weren't stopped to see something new. You were stopped to finally notice what's been there the whole time. That's the contradiction. Nothing just arrived. It was always present. You just weren't in the state to recognize it until now. And now that you are, it won't hide the same way anymore. Not fully, not like before. It will still be subtle, still quiet, but not invisible. Not to you. That's why it feels closer now. Not louder, just closer, like it stepped forward half a step and waited. You sense it, but you can't fully describe it. And that used to frustrate you. But notice it's not frustration anymore, it's curiosity. When did that change? You didn't force that shift. It happened on its own, somewhere between almost leaving and choosing to stay. That moment again. Why does everything keep pointing back to that one point? Because that's where the pattern broke. Not outside, inside. And once something breaks there, it doesn't reset. It reconfigures. That's what you're feeling now. Something rearranging without asking you. And here's where it gets even more specific. You're not being shown everything. You're being shown just enough to stay aware. Because if you saw the full picture right now, you wouldn't move carefully. You'd rush. You'd try to skip steps, connect dots too fast, fill in gaps that aren't meant to be filled yet. And that would distort it. So it's controlled. Not hidden, controlled. There's a difference. Hidden means kept from you. Controlled means revealed, but on timing that protects it. And you're inside that timing, right now. That's why this feels precise again. Like every second you stay here, something is being measured. Not judged, measured. How long you can stay present without trying to escape. How long you can sit with something unfinished without forcing closure. That's the test, but not the kind you think, because there's nothing to pass or fail. You've already crossed the point where it matters. Now it's about stability. Can you stay here without turning it into noise? Because that's what used to happen. The moment something real touched you, you'd try to explain it away or bury it under distraction. But you're not doing that now. Even now, you're letting it stay unclear. That's new, and that's why it's staying with you. You feel that difference? Before, it slipped. Now, it lingers. Why? Because you're not pushing it out, and that changes how it responds. Yes, responds, because this isn't passive. It reacts to you, not your words, not your actions, your state. And your state right now is open but steady. That combination, it couldn't reach you like this before. That's the shift. And here's the part that might feel strange. It's been waiting for this version of you. Not the one who was searching everywhere. Not the one trying to force meaning. This one. The one who almost gave up but didn't close off completely. That small difference changed access. You didn't notice when it happened. But something did, and it adjusted. That's why things didn't fall apart this time the way they usually do. You expected the same outcome, didn't you? Same pattern, same ending, but it didn't complete. It stopped halfway. Why? Because you didn't respond the same way. And that broke the cycle. Not loudly, not dramatically, quietly. That's how real shifts happen. Not in big moments. In small interruptions that change direction. And you're in one right now. Still. You haven't left it. Even after all this, you're still here. That matters more than you think. Because this isn't about understanding yet. It's about staying long enough for the next layer to come forward. And it will. But not if you rush it. Not if you step out too early. So just notice this. There's something right at the edge of your awareness. You can feel it, but you can't fully see it yet. Almost like a memory, but not from the past. Something familiar without a clear origin. That's not random. That's recognition. Before clarity. And it's getting closer. Not in distance, in clarity. Like something turning toward you slowly, not to show itself, but to see if you'll stay. You feel that pull again, right? It's softer now, but harder to ignore. Before it brushed past you. Now it lingers, like it expects something back. Not effort, not answers. Just your attention. Why is your attention enough? Because that's the one thing you used to take away too quickly. You'd feel something real, then shift focus, break the moment before it could deepen. But this time, you didn't cut it off. And that changed how deep it can go. Depth. That's what this has always been about. Not events, not outcomes. Depth. Not outcomes. Depth. And you were kept on the surface for longer than you understood. Not because you couldn't go deeper, because you weren't ready to stay there. That's different. Anyone can touch something deep for a second, but staying there without running, that's rare. And that's exactly what you're doing now. Even if it feels subtle, even if part of you is still unsure, you're still here. That's the signal. And something is responding to that signal. You can feel it adjusting, can't you? Slightly clearer, slightly closer, but still not fully visible. Why hold back now? Because this next part, once you see it, you won't be able to go back to how you were interpreting everything before. It will reframe too much at once, and that's not the goal. The goal isn't shock, it's alignment. Slow, precise, undeniable. So instead of revealing itself fully, it's letting you approach it, step by step. But here's the part that shifts everything again. You think you're moving toward it. You're not. It's been moving toward you this whole time. Quietly. Adjusting moments, interrupting patterns, holding certain things back, letting others fall through, all to bring you to this exact edge. And yeah, that sounds bigger than you expected. But feel it, not think it. Doesn't it explain something? Those moments that didn't make sense, those delays that felt mistimed, those almosts that kept repeating. What if they weren't random breaks? What if they were corrections? Not fixing you, correcting direction. And every time you almost locked into the wrong path, something intervened. Not loudly, just enough to shift you. And you felt that as frustration, as confusion, as why does this keep happening to me? But now, standing here, it feels different, doesn't it? Same pattern, but new awareness. And that changes what it means. Because now you can see you weren't being pulled away from something good. You were being kept from something misaligned. That's the contradiction. It felt like loss, but it was protection. It felt like delay, but it was placement. And this time, you didn't fight it. You paused. You stayed. And because you stayed, something is finally starting to reveal itself in a way it never has before. Not fully, but enough. Enough to feel real. Enough to feel intentional. Enough to make you question everything you thought was just coincidence. And here's where it gets even deeper. This isn't just about what's been happening around you. It's about what's been forming within you while all of that was happening, quietly, layer by layer, without your permission, without your awareness, until now. And now that you're aware, you're part of it, not separate, not observing from the outside, inside it, which means the way you move from here changes everything that comes next. Not in a big visible way, but in small, precise, irreversible shifts. So let me ask you something. Why did you stay this time when every other time you would have left? It wasn't willpower. You didn't suddenly become stronger overnight. Something didn't let you disconnect, and that's different. Because before, leaving felt easy, almost automatic, like your system knew exactly when to shut things down. But this time, that switch didn't respond. Why? Look closer. The moment you were about to pull away, something in you hesitated. Not fear, not doubt, recognition. But of what? You didn't have words for it. Still don't, not fully, but it felt familiar in a way that didn't come from memory. That's the part that's hard to explain, because if it's not from the past, then where is that familiarity coming from? Hold that for a second. You felt lost before, disconnected, like nothing was lining up. But this doesn't feel like that. This feels like standing in something you almost understand, but not completely. And instead of pushing you away, it's pulling you deeper, slowly, carefully. Why slow? Because speed would break your trust. You wouldn't believe it if it all came at once. You'd question it, reject it, call it coincidence again. So it unfolds like this, just enough to keep you leaning in. Just enough to keep you here. And you are here. Still. Even now. That matters more than you think. Because staying is what allows the next layer to surface. Not chasing, not forcing, staying. And something is responding to that again. Can you feel how it's changing now? Not dramatically, but there's a slight shift in how it sits with you. Less distant, more direct. Like it's not just around you anymore. It's starting to involve you. That's new. Before, you were observing patterns. Now, you're part of what's unfolding. And that changes the pressure, because now it's not just about noticing. It's about how you hold it. Do you rush it? Do you label it? Do you try to make sense of it too quickly? Or do you let it stay just long enough to reveal itself properly? That's where this goes next. And here's the part that might catch you off guard. You think this is leading to something external. A sign. A moment. A clear answer. It's not. That's the shift. This was never building toward something outside of you. It was building toward your ability to recognize from within. That's why nothing obvious happened. Because if it did, you would have depended on that. But now, you're starting to see without needing proof. That's different. And that difference changes how everything reaches you from here. Because now, it doesn't have to be loud to get your attention. It just has to be precise. And you'll feel it. Like you're feeling this. That quiet certainty mixed with not fully understanding yet. That's the space where it becomes clear. Not instantly, but inevitably. And here's where it deepens again. This wasn't just about stopping you from missing something. It was about stopping you from becoming someone who keeps missing. That's bigger, because moments come and go. But patterns define direction. And your pattern just shifted. Not completely, but enough. Enough to change what happens next. And you might not see it immediately, but you'll notice something subtle. The next time you're about to repeat the same reaction, that same pause will appear again, but stronger, more noticeable. And this time you'll recognize it faster. That's how it builds, not all at once, layer by layer. Until one moment, you don't just pause, you choose differently. And when that happens, that's when you'll understand why all of this had to unfold the way it did. But not yet. Not fully, because there's still one part you haven't seen clearly. It's right there, in that pause you keep feeling, but haven't fully looked into. And once you do, nothing will feel accidental anymore. Not the timing, not the pauses, not even the things that don't work out. They'll feel placed. And that's where it starts to get intense. Because once you see placement, you can't go back to calling it coincidence. You'll start noticing it in small ways first. A delay that used to annoy you now feels like it's holding something back. A moment that almost happens, then shifts slightly, and you don't fully understand why. But you feel it. That same presence just under the surface. Still quiet. Still not explaining itself, but closer now. Why is it still not fully clear? Because you're still adjusting to seeing it. Clarity isn't just about being shown something. It's about being able to hold it without rejecting it. And you're right at that edge. You can feel that, can't you? Like if it becomes just a little more obvious, it might overwhelm you. Not scare you, shift you too fast. So it stays measured, controlled, again, but not hidden from you anymore. That's the difference. You're in it now. Not searching, not chasing. Inside it. And here's where everything tightens. That pause you keep feeling. It's not just a pause, it's a point of contact. That's what you haven't fully seen yet. You thought it was hesitation. You thought it was you slowing down. It's not. It's where something meets you, right there. In that split second, before you react, before you decide, before you move, that's where the connection happens. And you've been skipping past it your whole life. Not intentionally, you just didn't know it was there. But now you're starting to stay inside it a little longer each time. And every time you stay, it becomes clearer, not in words, in knowing. That quiet, undeniable sense of this matters, even if you can't explain why. And that's where the final shift begins. Because once you recognize that point, you can meet it consciously, not accidentally, not randomly, intentionally. And that changes your role completely. You're no longer just being guided, you're participating, carefully, quietly, but directly. And here's the unexpected truth. You were never being pulled forward. You were being aligned inward first. Everything outside was secondary. That's why nothing made sense before. You were looking outward for confirmation, while everything was being prepared internally. That's the contradiction that changes everything. It looked like nothing was happening while everything was being arranged. For you, through you, around you. And you almost missed it again. But this time, you stayed long enough to feel it, not fully understand it, not fully send it, not fully see it, but feel it. And that was enough. Enough to stop the old pattern, enough to open the next layer, enough to shift your direction without force. And now, even if you try to go back to how you were before, you won't be able to fully disconnect from this. Because you've already touched the point where it meets you. You know it's there now, you felt it. And once something like that becomes real to you, it doesn't disappear. It waits for you to notice it again and again, until one moment you don't just feel it, you trust it. And when that happens, everything that once confused you, every delay, every interruption, every almost, will finally make sense. Not as mistakes, not as mischances, but as exact moments that led you here, right here, where you didn't leave, where you didn't miss it, where something stopped you so you could finally see without being told. And now you know it was never random, it was never late, it was never lost, it was always right on time. You didn't miss it, you were meant to arrive here exactly like this. If you're starting to see it now, subscribe and stay on this path, because this isn't random, this is who you're becoming.